back. We are in the lobby, just waiting for the go-ahead. The thing should be starting in like less than a minute. Less than 30 seconds. In fact, how long is the timer for StarCraft? 10 seconds? There you go. Starting in 10 seconds. Alright, Rogue versus RagnaroK, a ZVZ. That should be pretty good. RagnaroK showing good form against Gumiho. Now, a ZVZ might be a different story, different matchup, blah, blah, blah. And Rogue did not look out of form against Cyril so much as he just was facing Cyril. So, okay, maybe this is just Rogue, you know, being like, okay, Cyril's Cyril, but I'm still got it, you know, this match, and this game. And RagnaroK, you know, rolls over and dies. Or RagnaroK gets to continue to prove why he advanced through the open qualifier and continue to impress us as the relative no-name compared to everyone else in this bracket, even though he's actually been in the scene for quite some time. Oh, okay, alright, well. Alright, in the top right. Going for that early pool. It is the blue Zerg, Psystorm's RagnaroK. In the bottom left is the red Zerg. It is Rogue. At least going for a 16 hatch, so already kind of setting things up okay for the... Oh, my, no. Oh, RagnaroK, don't do it. Don't do that thing. If you're going to spine crawler rush, then I'm on board. Oops, sorry. But he better not be doing that random ass hatchery in the middle of the map thing. Okay, good, he's not. I was gonna say that was like a third hatch too. What he did versus Scarlet. It didn't work out very well. But he's not, and that would have been the weirdest build ever. He is going to, in fact, do the spine crawler. He just totally avoided Rogue's Overlord. I mean, and then some. No. Yes. Yes. All right, so he did this versus Scarlet as well. Maybe he'll do in the next game the hatchery in the middle of the map thing. But there's the drone pool. As expected, when you go for a pool first, you might be thinking, oh, he's not taking a gas. Well, if he's going to send a drone over, it's going to be for a spine crawler, and you're going to pull the drones. So while Rogue has set himself up a little bit better against a regular pool first, this is an extreme pool first, and he has no idea it's on the way. His Overlord is just now going to see no hatchery, but that's not even enough intel. There's the sight on the Lings, and there's the sight on the drones. Spine crawler is already injured for not having creeps right underneath it, but it's still going to be very impactful. Rogue, what do you even do against this? Scarlet did it so successfully because she scouted it. Stop the spine crawler from even happening. He's going to transfer down to the natural. There's already another spine crawler making though for RagnaroK, and this is going to get really messy. Rogue has so many more drones, so technically he had some okay fighting power, I guess, but obviously no Lings have popped out yet. He's now down in drones, so you can see how successful drones really are in a head-to-head fight, and he needed to take the fight. He can't let another spine crawler finish. But unfortunately it does finish. A queen and some Lings pop out, but it is not enough. RagnaroK takes game number 1 in less than 3 minutes. Yeah, RagnaroK was a very sneaky ZVZer in GSL, and it was just very... It was a series of unfortunate events against Scarlet that made him look maybe worse than he really was. But if it had worked, if he had 2-0 Scarlet with both of those builds, he looks like a genius. Okay? There's like a fine line between genius and craziness or whatever that saying is, right? And this just worked against Rogue. So Rogue not only gets 0-2'd by Cyril and is like, okay, Cyril's still really good, like that's cool, it's whatever. He looked quite disappointed in the camera shot. He then gets 12-pulled Ling drone rushed. This is not what you want to wake up to. There's like waking up with Folgers in your cup, and there's waking up with drones in your natural base. One's far worse than the other. Year 0 is already getting started, guys, and this is the map where he drone rushed Scarlet, but I don't think he'll do it again. This might be the shortest game I've ever cast. Series. I mean, I've cast short games before, but if he does another like really early pool, then it could be the shortest series, and it works, of course. That's the whole thing. It's not going to be a early pool, but it, you know, still could be aggressive. Lots of options in ZVZ. It's actually a very fun matchup, especially for the Koreans. Well, especially for us watching the Koreans. I don't know how the Koreans like it. They might think it's stupid. And the top right is the red Zerg. It is RagnaroK with a quick 1-0. And the top left as the blue Zerg. It is RagnaroK. This fine thing was unlucky, but the proxy ouch is a bad idea. Yeah, I'm actually with you. But I forget exactly what happened in that game. I think it was just like Scarlet expanded and still held with her own Lings, which is kind of lame. You gotta figure that RagnaroK was hoping for a different build from his opponent. Like, there's... It's very, very unlikely that RagnaroK was like, this build never works, let's do it. So, it does happen. I've been told about Canna Rushes not, you know, working, and then they do pull it out for the main series, and suddenly it works that one time, and you're like, why would you bet your chances on that? But apparently people do. It happens, it's just very unlikely. So I'm not exactly sure what RagnaroK was hoping for in that game, but I'm only talking about it, by the way, because it is possible we see RagnaroK, if not in this match, but perhaps in another ZDZ, does go for that random weird third hatchery in the middle of nowhere, Ling Swell. Don't think it'll be on year 0 though. I don't know. Just it's a very. I mean, I guess it's like I actually don't know the. As I said, I don't know the exact reason or what he really wanted from his opponent to make that build work, but I just feel like year 0 has other abusive things in this matchup that you can try and do, and it's one of the biggest maps we have. I wouldn't do it, but I'm also not a pro, so. We'll see. And we are kind of looking towards RagnaroK, aren't we? He set the tone, he set the pace for this series with just that very quick game number 1. And while Rogue has his own way of playing ZVZ and his own aggression, it's not like RagnaroK's the only guy, the only Zerg in this matchup right now that can be cheesy and all-in-y. He definitely set the tone there. So Rogue was doing both games against Cyril, right? He went for that faster +1 Carapace. Or +1 Carapace at all. It didn't work, though. Even when it looked like it was going to work, it didn't. And he might just do it again here versus RagnaroK, because it did look to be like it was going to be successful versus Cyril, but it kind of seemed like one of those like Cyril things where it's like, yeah, that should work, and then it doesn't anyways, and you're like, oh, okay, Cyril's just really good. So I could see him doing it again, but we don't have that fast evolution chamber started. We do have just the third into a Baneling Nest for both parties. Very simple stuff. We'll see which one of them dedicates to more Ling. So far, it's Rogue already holding down that Z button a little bit more. There's the return for RagnaroK. And maybe they'll just make a decent number and continue on their merry way. Ling's chasing each other, not much else happening on the map. Eventually, they're going to want to confirm that it is a Baneling Nest from each other. Because there are some Zergs that want to skip the Baneling Nest and go right into Roaches. And this would be a game where they could both get away with that. They're not really... Either one of them's not going for a lot of Lings. But it's not going to be skipping the Baneling Nest and a Roach Warren. We have a fast lair for RagnaroK and a faster evolution chamber for Rogue. So he's probably thinking about going into Roaches pretty quickly here as he applies just the tiniest little bit of pressure. You have some Banelings morphing. One defensively and one defensively. So. RagnaroK doesn't really need to build any more Banelings. Unfortunately, he doesn't really know that yet. Year 0 is such a large map. It's a good scout in the main base. That it's really hard to have, even if you get to 5, 6, 7 overlords out on the map, it's just hard to see all the attack paths, isn't it? Already they have 3 out and they're keeping tabs on where they should, but you're not going to see everything. So that Ling that dove into the main base, of course, saw the natural, saw the evolution chamber, and the Roachborn is on the way for RagnaroK here. As he also has the same wall, but Rogue is at to throw his down. There we go. This Ling will scout the lair timing, not get a drone. Look at this, RagnaroK not really going into those roaches, going into a very fast Spire. Some of the fastest we get to see nowadays. At one point in time, there were some more like 2-base Spire builds where you hid behind your roach wall off and went, oh yeah, I'm totally going for roaches. That doesn't really happen that much anymore. So I would say this is one of the faster ones. And this is going to be up to RagnaroK to stop him from being scouted. He knows Rogue's lair timing, and even if Rogue immediately goes into an Overseer off the back of that lair, which doesn't happen always. Sometimes the Rogue player thinks they know what's going on, so they don't bother making an Overseer. It would have been a bit delayed, right? Speaking of which, still, as I said, it's not automatic. Rogue thinks he knows what's going on here. He's going for his roaches. He's got +1 lining up here. But because RagnaroK's Spire was particularly fast, this is going to be out and about even before the Nidus Worm. Yes, Nidus Worms. Of course Nidus Worms will pop forward. We saw this from Lambo yesterday, by the way, against the Spire play. I think the Spire was a little bit later, but still. And he didn't bring extra queens, which is a big mistake. This time, Rogue is going to bring queens and is even making extra. So while he doesn't know for a fact that it is Spire, he did see maybe the lack of +1, the lack of the Wiggly Jigglies, maybe. He is just bringing queens anyways, and if he thinks the queens won't do it, they can also bring drones and build spore crawlers. Lings are trying to buy some time, get some scouting. He still hasn't seen the Nidus Worm. There, the mutas are revealed to Rogue, and he can go ahead and adapt a little bit here if he feels like he even needs to, but that's so many queens that he's going to be fine. Transfuses come down on the Nidus Worm too, as it wasn't found that quickly. Even if it was, mutas don't kill it very fast at all. RagnaroK is in a very difficult position. Rogue's all in. The popular one on year 0 is going to be working out quite well against this. RagnaroK has the ability to make roaches, but doesn't want to. He wants a higher muta count, so he's trying to flood with Lings right now, but it's not working. This is definitely Rogue's game, and that's game. GG. Rogue takes game number 2 to tie things up. RagnaroK tried to get that earlier control with the mutas. If it was a simple roach attack across the map, he deflects it, he takes map control, he starts off with a good little victory there, but if it's a Nidus Worm with queens popping out, then, yeah, there's not really much you can do. Except try to snipe the Nidus Worms or get a bunch of spine crawlers. Basically a build counter, yeah. I'm not Tastosis. I don't have to talk about Amon on that map every time. That's their job. Maybe just maybe you might want to up your mic volume. Last time someone said this, I asked the chat and everyone else said it was okay, so I don't know, man. Didn't make me lobby host, it was a little awkward. Cyberforce will be the last map. Again, map score still important to note. Once we get into the 4th series of the day, that's when you really start to count up the numbers. Get chat to do all the legwork for you, and then you find out that, oh snap, it's really important that Rogue didn't get a map for Serral and lost a map versus RagnaroK. Now he's not going to make it through. That could definitely happen, even if he ends up winning this series. Every little bit can matter. But it is the ace match, and already this guy in the bottom right has impressed us with his CVZ and his CVZ shenanigans. It is the red Zerg, RagnaroK. The top left, as the blue Zerg, it is Rogue. And they both go for that 16 hatchery. RagnaroK was going to go into shenanigans. I mean, that faster Spire is still a little bit off kilter, off the norm of regular ZVZ. What Rogue did is actually so on point with today's ZVZ, it's insane. It's just the difference of bringing queens versus not bringing queens. But it's RagnaroK that, again, was going to maybe play a little differently, play a little weirder. And if it had been a macro game, then his faster mutas would have really made a interested, complicated game. And year 0 being how it is, we'd see a lot of lane floods and run bys. It would have been really cool. But it's definitely nicer that Rogue just nips it in the bud and takes care of it with a Nidus Worm. Slight difference of the openers is RagnaroK goes maybe a little more conservative. Rogue is certainly the type of player to go for his own aggressive opener in game number 3. He don't give a shit. But he doesn't. So RagnaroK slightly later gas. I believe is a result from his just earlier pool. You can see very, very slight differences. And then the gas there is a 50 gas difference. How much is that going to be in Meta Block boost timings? Like 5 seconds? No, 10 seconds. No, hold on. Let's time this out because we're not watching anything else happen. Slight difference on the Overlords. Seriously, so small. So small, so tiny. Of course, I'm paying attention to see if he even goes for Meta Block boost. It's not always a guarantee, and there we go. We're past 100. At this level, you don't make such a big mistake like keeping your drones in past 100 or even past... At worst, you don't keep them in past 108. Then you're not a pro, you're just a GM ladder scrub. This is definitely on purpose, and it is going to be for a lair. We're on Cyber Forest with pretty small choke in the front, and he is going to start his wall off, eventually build the Roach Warren. Is he going to try and be tricky this game? I literally brought up last game how the old, oh, I'm totally going roaches, but actually it's a 2-base Spire isn't that popular anymore. But it can happen. Rogue is slapping down that Evolution Chamber, which, you know, at a similar timing to RagnaroK, might be like, oh, what's the big difference? But he's going for speed. He's going for a 3rd base. I'm thinking that might be the +1 Carapace build he was showing versus Serral, which might be a little bit awkward. Yes, it is. It's, I mean, what happened in that game versus Serral? Serral went for roaches. Rogue's +1 Carapace was done. There's a lot of lings, but he still got broken. A little bit of deja vu. I didn't get to watch the game. I was watching on VOD because the series with the exact same length as my series. So I was kind of scrubbing through. I don't know the exact timings and this, that, and the other. I saw the end result. So the reason it's a little bit awkward is that the +1 Carapace is going to be effective for the lings so far into the future that RagnaroK will have quite a few roaches. And he'll have the +1 missile as well. They're both timed out on their upgrades. But what can be awkward for our boy RagnaroK is a simple ling swell. As you see here, the queen's already getting quite low to that number of lings. The Rogue not eager to send any more forward, already thinking about his transfer over into roaches. For quite some time, there was like a month or 2 period where the most popular all-in in ZVZ was the fast 1 Carapace into faster 1-1. And then you were like, oh, the lings could do a bunch of damage. And they could, but it was more about the lings plus the roaches later on. But I'm talking about attack from Rogue while watching RagnaroK just continue to build roaches. He's not heading towards the 3rd base. He's bringing the queens along as well, as weak as they are. And he is going for a big attack. And Rogue's +1 Carapace is not going to be finished. The timing here on their upgrades is actually pretty damn close, but I think RagnaroK's is slightly in the lead. He walls off completely back at home with an Evolution Chamber and more roaches, so he won't have a lot of reinforcements, but he does have a solid number of roaches with a couple transfuses, so that as long as he has his back up against the wall, these lings are going to have so much trouble. So you see Rogue desperately throwing down spine crawlers. Also makes to make sure that his Evolution Chamber doesn't die. It is going to finish up here in 2 seconds, but that +1 for the roaches being done for that amount of time is still pretty big. Here come the roach reinforcements, but is it enough? There's so many damn lings from Rogue. It's barely going to push through here, and his spine crawlers finish. RagnaroK's push does not quite work. It was very, very close, and maybe if he had been able to hide it a little bit longer, it would have worked. But hitting that +1 missile timing was of the top priority, and he was just a little low on those roaches. If these roaches, if 8 more roaches are with that main attack, there's not enough lings probably. But as it is, Rogue takes care of the first half of the roaches, now taking care of the second half with the surround. Queen trying to help out. He really needs to get this 3rd base up to match Rogue's. But he's having trouble. He's losing a ton of expensive units. But another wall is made with the Queen's double Evolution Chambers. Looks like he'll hold here, but Rogue is now adapting, moving on to the rest of the ZVZ. And he is going to have that superb mining if he just goes ahead and gets a couple more drones here. He's actually going to invest into more lings. I would have expected, yeah, I was going to say, I would have expected him to go up to, like, somewhere in the 40s or even 50 drones before he did the all-in here, because he's still waiting on that +1, right? And there we go now, more drones on the way. Just wants to have enough lings to properly threaten this third base. He took out so many roaches, it's already been kind of effective. We do have to talk about the whole idea of, you know, gas losses versus mineral losses, but also larva losses in terms of how much sheer larva it takes to build those lings. So it's a little more complicated than just, okay, this RagnaroK's losing and the resource is lost. But regardless, Rogue wants more of those trades. He wants more of those snipes. He wants more of those potential run-bys. And he can do it. He has a +1 carapace. And it's also going to help out his roaches. He will have that 1-1 timing over RagnaroK's +2. He's got a couple of spine crawlers to maneuver around as well, making sure that he doesn't lose any unnecessary drones. A couple of roaches come across the map. He doesn't see them. He has lost a lot of vision on RagnaroK's side of the map, except for this Overseer, which is getting into the main base, checking around for weird adaptations, or like a weird Spire timing. In this case, it is going to be Tunneling Claws, though. I'm actually not so certain this is what's going to really help RagnaroK. You know, he's already investing a lot of minerals and gas into +2, which actually won't be helpful for this push when it comes. But then to also invest in a Burrow and Tunneling Claws, I mean, grand scheme of things, what is it, like 300 minerals, 200 gas, something along those lines? Like, it's maybe not the biggest, but I don't know. Now the Spine Crawler's even coming forward, and yeah, I'm thinking that RagnaroK, he's got a decent army. It's just the upgrades are in favor of Rogue. Spine Crawlers could help out, or just die immediately. And he does have those lings. We're going to take a couple shots to kill for those roaches. But RagnaroK avoids getting surrounded temporarily, takes out the Spine Crawlers. His queens trying to use each other to buy a little bit more time. But is this going to be too good from Rogue? He stopped at 47 workers. RagnaroK a little bit higher. Again, researching all of these things that aren't helpful quite yet. And he was pounced upon maybe a little too fiercely. It's great that he took out the Spine Crawlers like he did, but this is going to be close. RagnaroK defense advantage. His Burrow and Tunneling Claws is almost done, but there are 2 Overseers, so it's not like he can get away with it. There are, like, very few roaches, I guess, so maybe, like, just healing factor can work out for a little while, but here come more roaches for Rogue, and it looks like they're going to just go ahead and burst through the natural. Not quite. Wall is stopped. +2's finished up for RagnaroK now as well. And he's trying to use this Burrow Micro to the best that he can, but it's just not going to be enough. Initially holding okay in the supply, but now just at half the supply, a quarter of the supply. His third hatch goes down, and that's going to be it. GG. Rogue with that 1-1 attack timing I was talking about earlier on.